Today, let's discuss about the topic logging in Java. First, let's see why this logging is that important. For many years, logs have been an essential part of troubleshooting our applications and the infrastructure performance what we use. They help us in providing visibility into how our applications are running on each of the various infrastructure components. These logs provides us data that which contains information such as out of memory exceptions or hard disk errors, etc. etc. So these informations will be helpful to identify the why behind a problem, either that a user has brought to our attention or that we have uncovered yet. But when we log a lot of uh, data, so their sheer volume can limit how fast these can be done. So integrating a logging with monitoring can help us sift through this data much more quickly to solve customer experience issues which are caused by slow working applications in case of slow working applications. So in simple terms, logging gives us an understanding of the behavior of our applications and that which helps us in debugging our application. So this business we do nowadays tells us many information, important informations like user preferences, the important system data, the security threats which comes in, and the competitive analysis, etc. So testing the logs by the testing team is very important, and they should consider monitoring the logs on a very regular basis. And most logging frameworks have the same set of logging levels like fatal, error, warning, info, or debug. But when we increase our logging levels, which may be used when in development, you could see that there is a start of disk space concerns. So this may be not an issue if you having one application, but if you employ multiple applications, system resources could be affected. So we must take care of what we log and where we log. Okay. So unfortunately, the JDK did not include logging in its original releases. So by the time the Java log API was added, several other information logging frameworks have become widely used. In particular, we use Apache Common Logging or and the Log4j. So this led to a problem in integrating different third-party libraries. So each using different logging frameworks. So then the wrappers come into action, and there are pluggable logging frameworks which are developed to solve these problems, to switch over the log frameworks in our systems. So these are the building blocks of logging, and the first one is the logger. This logger is responsible for capturing the messages that has to be logged along with certain metadata which it provides, and this message is being passed to the logging framework. So next is the formatter. After receiving the message from the logger, this framework or logging framework calls the formatter, which formats the output into a customer readable, user readable format. So it may be like a simple formatter or XML formatter. These formatters are built in along with the logging frameworks. So then the filter comes into action. This filter decides which of these messages gets logged or not. And then after filtering is being done, the framework then hands the formatted message to the appropriate appender or handler for disposition. This might include output to a console display, or it can be written into a disk, or appended to a database, or it may be generated as an email. So these are the different handlers which are being used. They are like console handler, file handler, stream handler, socket handler, and memory handler accordingly where the output is being given out. So, so next is the logging levels. These are the basic logging levels. It is in the degree of like fatal to trace. It is the topmost severity to the least severity level. Fatal is most severe, error, then warn, info, debug, and trace. So about fatal, this means that the application is about to stop a very serious problem or some correction from happening. So this log shows that one application's situation is catastrophic, such that an important function is not working. For example, the application may not be able to connect to a data store or something. And next level is error. Unlike fatal logging, error does not mean your application is aborting. Instead, there is just an inability to access a service or a file from your system. So this error shows a failure of something important in your application. And also, most of the time, the application will continue to run, but eventually it will need to be addressed. And next is the warning level. The warn level is used when you have detected an unexpected application problem. This means you are not quite sure whether the problem will reoccur or remain. So there will not be any harm to your application at this point. But if this happens again, we have to make a note of it, and we have to check what is happening inside so that the problem never occurs again. The next one is the info. Info messages are like normal behavior of application. They state what happened. For example, if a particular service tab has started, we can add something, or something is added to the database or something like that. So it is just the information logged in with the help of info. So next is the debug. With debug, you are giving diagnostic information in a detailed manner. It is verbose and has more information than you could need when using the application. This debug logging level is used to fetch information needed to diagnose, troubleshoot, or test an application to ensure smooth running of your application. So the least level is the trace. This log level captures all the details about the behavior of your application. It is also mostly diagnostic and is more granular and finer than the debug logging level. So this is very much in need when you want to know what happened in your application or what happened in the third-party library used. So that is the place where trace comes into action. So these are the basic logging levels, and this is a simple format of a log message. And here you can see the date and time, millisecond precision to be mentioned. And next is the log level, and here it is the error log level. And next, the process ID is shown here, and a separator just to distinguish what the actual message is going to be shown. And next is the thread name. This is included inside a square bracket. And next is the logger name. This c.b.s.s syllabus service is the logger name, and the logging message here. So this is the simple log format. So these are all some logging best practices. So first is the use of a standard logging library. Why to use a standard logging library? Now, if you tie yourself directly to a single framework, then switching to a newer library can take a substantial amount of work and time. So keep that in mind and go for the API that will give you flexibility to swap logging libraries in the future. Just like if you need to switch from log4j to logback and or to log4j2, when we are using SLF4j API, the only thing we need to do is just change the dependency and do not touch the code. So using a standard logging library is very important. And next is select your appenders wisely. So as we have seen, appender is the thing which is going to record all our logs. So where logs events will be delivered. So that is the appender. So the most common appenders are like console and file appender. So we must choose it wisely. Use some meaningful messages. You can add a response code or a response message from your block of code so that the user who just reads the message gets a clear idea of what is being logged here. And the same thing goes with the logging of Java stack traces. So we can catch the exceptions and throw it in our logging messages so that it'll be easy, and we can get the name of the class or method where the problem occurred, or even the line number where the problem occurred, right? So in real life situation, this stack traces will be longer, but you should include them to give you enough information for proper debugging. So then keeping the log structure consistent is very much important. So this is not only true with a single application or set of microservices, but should be applied across your whole application stack. With similar structured log events, it will be easier to look into them, compare them, correlate them, or simply store them in a dedicated data store. So keeping the log structure consistent is important. Then adding some context to your log is also important. just simply mentioning an message like an error occurred is not going to be enough. So we can include with whose user ID the error has been occurred, or when it has occurred, and something like that. So contextual information is good to go. So next is that don't log too much or too little. Space concerns. Avoid logging sensitive information, security concerns. So better to use a log management solution. So these are all the best log practices, few best log practices, I mean. So how do we make the logs much more useful? So how do we make the logs much more useful is through structuring those logs. So as a good practice, structuring the log is very much important. So we do have what structured log can do for us. So these are all the questions a structured logging can answer. It may be like diagnostic questions like what caused this stack trace, what was the sequence of events that led up to this request failing unexpectedly, or analytical questions like who is using our service, what does usage look like over time, or whatever customers using our system to do too, or like monitoring questions like how long is it taking to process the request, or how much available memory is there. So these are all the main questions a structured logging can answer us. So customers often feel that support for business analytics is a much lower priority than adding new features. So after all, we can always add that stuff later, right? But it is not correct in real time. The later never comes. The effort to modify the software has become prohibitive unless you have been using structured logging all along. In that case, adding business analytics support turns out to be very easy to do. In many cases, all you need to do is to create some canned reports using the log analytic tools. So with these questions answered, we can go for structured logging everywhere to make it good and simple. So the idea of structured logging is to take an application log that is delivered as a string of text and convert it into a simple relational data set that can be more easily searched and analyzed. So this is a simple report where our application where a simple application lets user to create reports. So this is a simple report which says that a new report has been created, and we can add some more context with the date, time, followed by message, and also the logging level, which is mentioned as info here. And later we can make it also better by adding the of the user ID here. So a new report has been created by user 4253. So adding up context to a logging message is very good. Also, it wouldn't be a stretch to imagine log events recording different occurrences. Here, a new report has been created, a report has been updated by some other user, a user have also deleted report. So different events can be recorded, right? As you see, users can also change and delete reports. Also, the last example here doesn't use the same format as the other two. Like the user ID has been come inside the message. In the other two messages, the user ID has been pushed to the very end of the your log message. So now comes the tricky part. Let's say you need to search through your log events to find all instances of a given user performing some action to reports. That's not so easy to do, thanks to the inconsistent format of these messages. So besides report, user can do all other kinds of types of artifacts, and such activities are also logged. With the right amount of regular expressions, probably be able to pull it off. However, such code is error prone, fragile, and doesn't generate the most value for you and your customers. So the structured logging comes to the rescue. Here, this is the format of a structured logging. And this is a basic JSON. And we have here the timestamp mentioned, level of the logging and the message, the user ID, the report ID, and also the action which has happened. So with the help of this, these are all easily parsable logs, and this is an example, right? So we have the properties that indicate what action occurred and the identifications of the relevant objects. So parsing a collection of events in this format makes it easier to search through the events. So then it would be with the plain text, right? So structured logging is a very good thing. So these are all the basic logging frameworks available. So first is the Apache Log4j. It is the very old logging framework and the most popular one for several years. So this introduced the concepts of this hierarchical log level and the loggers and etc etc. So we can use the SLF4j to write the log messages along with log4j. See, logback is also follows the same concepts of log4j, but this improves the performance a little bit. And logback supports SLF4j natively. And also many improvements with filtering has been done in logback. So this log4j2 is the next in line that gives us asynchronous loggers for low latency systems, provides garbage free mode to avoid any latency operation. And these are all um, some examples, some facilities that log4j2 provide. So this writing log messages with SLF4j is very easy. This SLF4j is nothing but simple logging facade for Java, and it acts as a facade for different logging frameworks. This SLF4j offers a generic API, making the logging independent of the actual implementation. So in short, what JPA is for RDBMS, SLF4j is for log providers. With all these theoretical informations, let's go see a small application, Spring Boot application, where I have implemented logging and how we can switch logging frameworks. So this is a small school management application. And here in this application, I have a CRUD operation for creating a syllabus and reading a syllabus. And here I have used this SLF4j log factory, and I've created a logger object. And with that logger object, I'm going to print the debug messages, sorry, logging messages. So here, when this create method is being entered, I'm going to print a debug message saying entering, creating a syllabus. And also if a syllabus is being created, I'm going to print it out as an information. Also, again, a debug saying that this syllabus is being created successfully. So here is a sample warning message which says that if I'm going to create number of syllabuses which exceeds this limit, I'm going to warn. Okay. And also I have covered here warning, info, debug, and here in read, I have again inputted debug, and here I have printed out an error message. In this read, if I'm going to give out an ID which is not available, so this is going to display an error message to me. So, so with this, I'm going to basically for SLF4j, I've mentioned that logback is the engine that which is available by default in a Spring Boot application. So that can be found here. This is a logback, and SLF4j acts with this logback here. So we don't need any extra uh, application or properties in the form.xml. Nothing is given. Only the basic feature I'm using here. Here in application.yaml, I'm going to give out the levels of logging. So first, let me say that in root level, I'm going to mention the level of logging as a debug, which displays every information, every other information. And also in this Bangalore jug package, that is where my service resides. And I'm going to tell the logging level as info for sample, right? So I'm going to run the application in debug mode. And here I have called this read operation so that I can check the error message at first. Then I have called a create operation, which creates syllabuses. So let me debug the application. See, we can see all the debug messages here. Like there are a number of message. So once again, so you can see that the time timestamp and the kind of logging level and the ID and the thread name and the name of the login and the actual message. So these debug messages are coming from the root level, which we have mentioned in the application YAML.yaml as I think we have mentioned it here as debug in the root level. So then, so these are all the messages which have been come under the debug logging levels from the root level, and I'm just running it over. So here you can see that the error info which I have printed in the read service, which says that there is no syllabus available because I have read with the ID 1. There is no, this syllabus is empty right now. So next, again, I'm going to run it over. Let's see whether all other things are being created. And let me check this. So let me loop it over just for 7 syllabuses to be created. And then I'm running the application again. So here it is. All the debug messages have come. So because of the debug in root level, there are enormous amount of messages what we got. So I'm just going to change this to info. And I'm going to run the application again. You can see that this error message have been printed out, and the info messages which have been given out when syllabus is being created, and the warning message has been come when the syllabus limit is being exploded to a number of items, a number of syllabus being created. So basically the info, warn, error message and the debug messages or the logging levels here. So you can see that I have used a concept called rolling. Here I am logging the messages to a file named schoolmanagement.log. Here it is. Also, if I'm going to exceed the level maximum size of 1 MB, I'm going to create a number of files in a format of school management with the date and information about the timestamp messages, and the logging is being done in these files. So this is called a rolling of log files. Okay. So now I have already told that I'm using the basic Spring Boot's SLF4J and logback here. So what I'm going to do is unplug this logback engine, and I'm going to plug in log4j2. So here in form.xml, there are certain properties like dependencies like exclusions. So which I have commented earlier. So I'm going to uncomment it. These are all the exclusion. What I'm going to exclude is the basic logback, uh, which is being supported by the Spring Boot. So I'm going to exclude that, and I'm going to include this log4j2 dependency. So I've just switched the framework, and I've not done any changes in my code. And I'm going to run the same. So let me rebuild my manual. I've rebuilt my application, and I'm going to run it again. So here, let's check. Uh, let's check what are the external libraries being changed after I have added this log4j2. See, I think the logback has been removed from the external libraries, and the log4j is being added up along with slf4j. So that's the some change, only change that we do with the pom.xml, and no changes in the code has been done. And I've run the application, and I've got the same informations, logging informations like info, one, and etc. So this is with the a small demo which I thought of showing you. So that's all from my side.